My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score, whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before, whoa. See from here we going up, made the... My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score, whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before, whoa. See from here we going up, made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up, say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up, made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up, say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What up, Night Nation, and welcome to the Knighted Ones episode number 95. We're closing in on 100, and we're ready to celebrate with you as the season starts. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst, and hoops player, an infamous, yes, that's infamous rapper, our resident influencer, and IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70 plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, the Big 12 Huddle, 4th in Florida, and a whole bunch more to come during the season. So first things first, we owe you an apology. We thought we were going to go on Monday. We didn't end up going on Monday. Ben was going to do it on Wednesday. Something popped up. So we apologize, but we're locked into the football season as we near 4 weeks until kickoff. So for this week, what are we going to talk about? We're going to kick off our season preview. We're going to start with the different position groups. So defensive backs and linebackers tonight. What do we expect? What are we excited about? Freshmen, transfers, etc. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Gus Malzahn. He said a little something about UCF, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little NIL news and some other football news as well. Ben is going to start his preview of the basketball team as now it's locked in. He's going to talk a little bit about that this week. We're going to talk a little listener love. Alan's going to give us his Oxymoronic stat of the week. And hopefully that'll take us through the show. So excited. We're going to bring the guys in. So without further ado, the tallest man in all of UCF sports podcasting, Ben Stout.
What's up, Roger? How's it going, man?
It's going, man. I'm producing. I'm doing everything. I don't know.
Doing it all, man. Love it.
But excited to be here with you guys and talk a little UCF sports. It's just not the same when my week does not have a podcast in it. So I'm excited to have you back.
I know. I'm glad we're all back together again. That's for sure.
All right. Next to the stage, someone who needs no introduction. He's someone who is an IG star, and you may be following him. Alan Levin, welcome back to the show.
What's going on? It's good to be back.
It's good back, man. Give us that hair flip. There it is. As a reminder, once we hit 1,000 followers, Alan will be cutting his lovely locks. I'm not going to let him live that down. Next, unfortunately, last but not least, but we're fortunate to have him this week, straight from the OR, Trey Neal. What's up, national champion?
What's up, gentlemen? Go Dodgers. Yeah, you're right.
It's Doyers, man, Doyers. But all right, so we've got an action-packed show for you this week. Let's go ahead and start off a little bit of UCF football season preview. We're going to start this week with the defensive backs and linebackers. Next week, we'll finish off the defense with the D-line, and then we'll get into the offense for obvious reasons. Scottfrost came out again with an interview recently that said, hey, normally when you have a quarterback room where nobody's named the quarterback or the starting quarterback, do you have a bunch of good players or do you have no starting quarterback? And he said this week that what he does have is he has a bunch of guys that he's confident in starting, but he hasn't made the decision yet. So coach speak, who knows? But because of that, as we march closer to the season, we'll go ahead and get into the offense because quarterback, as we know, is the most important player on the field. So that being said, Alan, why don't you get us started off with the defensive backs and linebackers?
Yeah, so starting off with DBs, a lot of turnover in the offseason in the secondary, probably the most of any position on the field when you consider that we had 6 DBs transfer out. We lost a ton to graduation, and really we lost most of our top defensive backs. I know our secondary was kind of middle of the row last year and hasn't really been elite in quite some time. But that being said, we still had 2 DBs go to the NFL, Mac McWilliams, who did get drafted in the 5th round, and then BJ Adams, who actually, unfortunately, I saw got carted off the field at Dolphins practice the other day. So I don't know how serious that is, but between him, Quadric Ballard, Ladarius Tennyson, Sheldon Arnold, plus the transfers, UCF has lost a lot of guys there. And obviously one of the big ones, Chasen Johnson, who left and then he came back and then he ended up ultimately leaving for USC. So a lot of turnover, and which is why UCF brought in a whopping 8 transfers in the secondary, which again, by far the most of any position. Also signed 2 guys out of high school in the 2025 class there. So completely kind of brand new secondary, but there are some guys returning, some key guys from last year. Braden Marshall, who we know played, at the slot there. One of the key playmakers last year, looking to have a big year. He had a little bit of an injury in spring ball, but Frost recently said he's completely healthy and ready to go for fall camp. So that's good news. Then you have the Henderson twins coming back. Both have dealt with injuries over the last couple years, but it does look like Damari Henderson is really vying for a starting spot. Remember, 2 years ago, he led the team or tied for the team lead in interceptions. So he was a guy that produced, but dealt with a lot of injuries. And his twin brother, Jakari, also dealt with a lot of injuries in the last couple of years. So hopefully they're back healthy and can really start to produce. They were both 4-star prospects in the 2022 class, Malzahn's first class when he first got here. And then you have Antoine Jackson coming back, who kind of had a hitter of a miss year last year, was up and down, but showed some positive signs, was also a 4-star guy that started out his career at ECU. So there's some exciting stuff here. And then when you talk about the transfers that came in, there was a lot of heralded transfers. Some guys from LSU transfer over, some big guys from FAU, believe it or not. So the depth chart right now is still kind of being formed, but it does look like it's going to be mostly transfers that take the starting spots, and then maybe Marshall and one of the Henderson twins. But we kind of have a new look secondary here. But I think there's some really good talent, a lot of really good athletes, and some of the guys that Frost brought in through the portal have done some really great things at their most recent stops. A lot of former Power 4 guys that produced and started at their previous schools. So I think we got something here in the secondary, but again, it's a lot of new faces there.
Yeah, a lot of new faces is definitely the name of the game, right? And we did a lot of recruiting as well on the offseason. So I think, though, who do you think, Alan, really stands out of the transfers that we brought in, and who do you think will be our starting defensive backs this coming season?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. There's quite a few transfers. I'm trying to bring up here the transfer list, but I do think in terms of returning guys, I have a really good feeling that Marshall will start again at the slot position. I think Damari Henderson can lock up one of the safety spots. But in terms of guys that I think will start from the transfer portal, there's been a lot that's been said actually about both of the FAU guys, Philip Dunham, and I think the other one is Jaden Williams is the other one. They are both getting a lot of buzz in both spring camp and now in summer camp as well. So I think one of them could definitely be a starter. Then I'm also really excited about Jair Brown. He played at both Ohio State and LSU. Didn't play a ton, but was a really highly recruited guy in high school. Has a lot of potential. I think he has a good shot at starting. So out of the transfers, I'm going to go with Philip Dunham and Jaden Williams. I mean, just from what I've heard, all the way dating back to kind of right around when they transferred and then throughout summer ball, I'm excited about them, and I think they are going to lock up 2 of those starting spots as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I know we had transfers, but I think from a defensive back perspective, we were good last year, but we weren't great. I'm not a big fan of, I know this is going to sound contradictory, right? because we've had some success, including Trey, when you were playing, we had some success at transfer DBs, right?
Yep.
They came into the program. A certain Mike, Mr. Mike.
First round draft pick.
Yeah, Mike. And we don't even say his last name at this point. It's just Mike. But we've had some success in the past with that. Lately, though, when we brought these transfers in that were 4-star, 5-star guys that were at programs like LSU, et cetera, and in this case, Ohio State and LSU, and didn't get as much playing time, but now is coming here, it kind of gives me some concern, either that they don't have the work ethic or, they've got the physical tangibles. But are you concerned at all? I know you said you were excited about him. What makes you excited about him to help us understand why he deserves or why you think he's going to start?
I think, just the way that he was talked about, even from the quotes I read about from previous coaches. Yeah, he didn't play a ton at either LSU or Ohio State, but he was kind of buried behind a lot of guys. I mean, the Ohio State team was the year before they won the championship. So there was a lot of really good talent on that. And obviously LSU always has really good DBs. So it's more been the tape that I've seen and how the coaches and especially previous coaches kind of talked about him. I'm not saying he'll definitely win a spot. Like I said, I feel a lot better about Phillip Dunham probably taking a spot. This is a guy that started, all 12 games last year at FAU, yes, against lower competition, but he's been, he's a senior that has, I think, something like 20 or 28 or 30 games of starting experience. So, that's something I'll always look at. One guy I probably failed to mention too is Isaiah Reed. He's a transfer as well that's getting some good buzz, I think could start. And, and then DJ Bell too, who's a junior transfer. Those guys have also been getting some love. I mean, if I had to really say who I thought would be the transfers that start, I would go with Dunham and Williams and maybe DJ Bell as the starters. So I guess maybe I might have overhyped Jair Brown a little bit, but I think he has a chance to get in the rotation when you consider it's kind of wide open right now. There's not really any guaranteed spots going to like a standout stud other than maybe Marshall at the nickel.
Yeah. So I think Braden Marshall, I'm looking for a breakout year for him, right? He came in with a lot of hype. We heard a lot of good things about him in camp. So I'm expecting Braden Marshall to kind of take the bull by the horns and take his position and own it. The Henderson twins is interesting because those are, again, a couple of highly ranked guys. They didn't break into the rotation really too much last year. I'm expecting them to kind of have a breakout year too. So it'll be interesting to see because with Mac McWilliams gone, BJ and Mac McWilliams, I think was also drafted, right? BJ Adams, NFL player. Yep. So those guys, I think ultimately those leave two big holes, but I do think that I expect Braden Marshall and the Henderson twins to at least get some time in that rotation. I don't think that the transfers that we were bringing in, you bring transfers in to start. I think the FAU kid definitely heard nothing but good things about him when he came in and transferred here. So I expect he will do well, but I expect a lot of things out of Braden Marshall this year. I don't know. And the Henderson twins. Yeah. So I don't know how you feel. What do you think, Trey?
Yeah, definitely Braden Marshall. His junior year, highly touted guy. I mean, a lot of teams in the country wanted him, and he's made plays. You've seen the talent since he was a freshman. You saw it a lot last year, but you want him to take that next step as just an older guy. He's the older guy in the room now. And again, NFL prospects, that's what a lot of these guys care about. They look at the junior tape. They love watching the junior tape. They want to see what you do, when you're at your peak of your powers. Your junior, senior year, that's when most guys are at their best. So I expect a lot of them. I'm with you, Roger. I expect a lot out of them. And I think everybody else is kind of, I wouldn't say wild cards, but it's going to be we see. I don't think anybody else has played in the past well enough to just have, that automatic, this is my job. I'm walking into it, XYZ. Actually, none of them do just because it's a new regime. But I think Braden's probably our safest guy that we can expect just from the talent perspective and what he's shown. And then, like you said, the Henderson twins are really talented guys. They've struggled to stay on the field. I think one of them, the safety, he's just struggled to stay on the field. But he's, again, talented kids. And then the transfers, competition breeds greatness. That's what you want. The FAU kids, I've heard a lot. I've heard that they're pros, and maybe not in the sense of their talent, but just in how they carry themselves, show up on time, practice hard, lead, talk. That's what you need year one specifically when you're going through a coaching change, a roster change like this, dramatic, where they pretty much got rid of everybody except the players. So it's like I said, once you do that, it's on the players. If you guys don't perform, it's not going to be, all right, we're blaming two coaching staff. Some of these guys, two coaching staffs are not doing that. It's going to be maybe you guys, maybe we have to get a better roster around us. So it'll be interesting.
The other thing to add to that, Trey, is like when you're coming into a room like this, right, where a lot of people left. I mean, we lost a ton of people, right? Yeah. So when you're coming into a room like this, what you experienced when you went to Nebraska, you talked about going into, the defensive back rooms, and that idea of having to earn your way into the locker room and all that stuff. You really don't have that anymore. You specifically don't have that in the DB room. So if guys are stepping up, and they're willing to take that leap and put in that extra level of effort, to your point, that leadership is even more important than it normally would be. And B, they all have an opportunity to see the field this year. There's only probably Braden Marshall's probably the only one that's closest to locking down a position out of that entire defensive back group. Yeah. So it's really, really interesting because you have that opportunity and that option there at UCF this year, which you normally wouldn't get anywhere at a Power 5 program, Power 4 program, soon to be Power 3 program. I like, you couldn't have walked into a better situation, but you do need some vocal leadership that you don't have, even if it was guys that wouldn't see the field, but are still that heartbeat, right, of the room. Those guys aren't there this year.
Yep, it's all new guys. I mean, like you hit it on the head. It's when it's like you said, when I went to Nebraska, I was really the only new guy in the freshman. This guy is this room is pretty much completely flipped on its head. It's completely different. So with me, when I went, I just wanted to become a guy. I didn't want to be the guy that I'm just here to take your spot. Ultimately that's what I came in to go play. But I didn't want to just disrupt the room because I know the culture aspect to it that is important. So I stayed after. I said, listen, if any of you guys need help with anything, let me know. And I think that's what those older guys should do, especially with you're coming in, these young guys, and I'm saying young, but just guys who are now stepping into that older role. They might feel threatened, and they should feel threatened. But you don't want it to be a unhealthy competition. It's listen, we're all going to work, we're all going to play. And the best man win. That's what you want. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see it. I'm really excited to see how these guys respond. I think first day was the day of camp. So
yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's a long day, long month. Before
whatever. You're still excited at the beginning of camp. I will say this though. I hope that they were in the indoor or at least doing it. I bet you they were doing practice early in the morning. I didn't get to. Because it was, I walked outside today at like 1:00 in the afternoon. It was literally over 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And it was bad when Trey and I were playing, right? Like when you had to do 3-a-days and stuff like that, but I didn't have to do it in 100-degree weather. I may have had to do it in like 85-degree or 90-degree weather because I was in Germany when I was playing high school. But man, 100-degree weather with that many reps, that'll whip you into shape quick.
Yeah, it looked like from the video that they posted today, it was like an early morning outside, and then the rest of the day in the indoor. So that's at least that's the way the progression of the video, the very brief video, social media video that they posted today.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, now the indoor is conditioned. So back when I was playing, you're like, I'd rather stay outside.
It was just shelter from the rain, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather stay outside.
Well, how bad was that without the air condition in there? I mean, did it really like bake you guys? Because it's all aluminum, right? Or metal.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was horrible just because it's like you're hot, like it's just as humid as it is outside, but you can't get a breeze.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. And there was nothing circulating air. So it was like walking almost in a sauna. And you practice. on
Yeah,
turf.
I didn't like when I was playing Trey. I didn't like it when it rained outside during the fall because that meant that our gym was going to be overtaken by U football players.
Yeah,
we didn't have the indoor practice facility back then.
You football players. All right, Alan, tell us a little bit about the linebackers. Where are we at with those guys?
Yeah, so linebackers, I'm probably going to end up saying this about every position group, but also had a ton of turnover. Only 3 linebackers returned from last year's squad, and guys that didn't play at all, quite frankly, with TJ Bullard, Troy Ford Jr., and Cam Moore. I mean, Cam Moore's played sparingly over the last couple of years, but the other 2 haven't really played at all, maybe a little bit on special teams. So they did bring in 6 new guys, 5 in the portal and 1 high school signee. But it's kind of similar to last year where we brought in experience in the linebacker core, guys that also played at Power 4 programs. We saw how it went last year. I would say mixed results when you talk about guys like Ethan Barr and Deshaun Pace, and they played well to a degree, but probably hyped up more than anything. But again, this year, I mean, you can't hate when you look at the guys that brought in a lot of experience and a lot of starts under their belt. Right now, I would say the 2 favorites to probably start are Lewis Carter, guy from Tampa, transferred from Oklahoma, played in all 12 games last year, mostly as a backup, but he still had 21 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, forced fumble and a fumble recovery. So he played pretty significant minutes, was playing games against Texas, Tennessee, obviously Oklahoma's first year in the SEC or second year in the SEC. So he played a good amount there. So I think he's someone that should start, former 4-star guy out of high school and played a good amount at Oklahoma. So definitely has experience under his belt and is a junior. So like Trey said, kind of that year that you look for them to really break out. So I think he's someone that should start and is fairly exciting. And the other one I think most of us are expecting to start is Kelly Lawson. He played at Virginia Tech for the last 3 years. He's had 9 starts over the past 2 seasons, but played in every single game, just not all of them as a starter. Last year, he had 40 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 4 pass breakups, and an interception. So definitely a guy with a lot of experience. And I would say Carter and Lawson are definitely the 2 guys right now that are probably slated to start. Someone also interesting is Cole Kozlowski. I think UCF every year gets a linebacker from the lower ranks. There's been multiple over the last few years, whether it's Jason Johnson. Then the year before we had Bryson, forgetting his last name, but we always kind of get the guy from the lower ranks, and they played very well. And this is a guy, Kozlowski, has really had a standout career at Colgate. He was a captain on their team, played all 4 years, essentially has started every single year he was there. He was second in the Patriot League in tackles for a loss. He led Colgate in tackles and also had 3.5 sacks and forced fumble and interception. So he was kind of all over the field. We'll see how that translates into the Power 4, but he's a guy who should definitely get some playing time. He's been a leader at Colgate. He's played all 4 seasons, has a ton of experience. So I think, someone with his talent could probably translate, seems more like a middle linebacker type guy, kind of a captain of the defense, if you will. So I think someone that should get a lot of playing time. He's only here for 1 year as a 5th-year senior. So I'd assume, he came here to really play. And then there's a couple other transfers that UCF also landed. That includes Jaden McDonald, and then Phil Picchiotti, I think is how you pronounce it, or Picciotti. Yeah, Picciotti. Yeah, he also comes over from Oklahoma. He's battled pretty much injuries his whole career. He's been on and off the field, but I have seen that Scottfrost did say, again, he was injured in the spring still from the previous season, but he's fully healthy and ready to go. He was someone that was also really heralded out of high school, but just has actually suffered back-to-back season-ending injuries as a freshman and as a sophomore. So he's a redshirt sophomore, but someone with some exciting talent. And then you have Jaden McDonald, also a redshirt senior transfer. So I think this is going to be mostly made up of transfers. Again, the only kind of 2 guys that have been kind of held over from Malzahn's days of recruiting and linebackers, like I said, are Troy Ford And I just don't know that to this point, he hasn't really been able to see the field. Him and TJ Bullard, they've been in the program now both for 2+ years. I don't know if it's a thing of development or they're just not going to play, but I haven't really heard much about them. I know Troy had some injuries dating back to last year. I haven't really heard much about TJ. So we'll see if they can see the field. Maybe they're more special teams guys, but it does look like this is going to be dominated by transfers. And I would say Kelly Lawson and Lewis Carter, and even Phil Steele even had an interview recently about UCF. He kind of talked a lot about Kelly Lawson, said he's interviewed some of UCF's coaches and have liked his work ethic, have liked, how he's been practicing, and he looks to kind of be a lock at starter. And then again, there's been a lot of hype around Lewis Carter and his physical talents, and a guy that comes over from Oklahoma. So I think there's some excitement there, but I think we've seen this story before. So until it plays out on the field, I think linebacker, as it's been for, it feels like half a decade now, probably a work in progress, but maybe the Frost effect makes it a little bit different.
Ben, I think you wanted to say something
Oh
about.
no, I had to look it up because you mentioned his name and it was driving me nuts. But Bryson Armstrong.
That's it. Yeah.
It was driving me insane. The moment you said, I'm like, what was that guy's name? It was actually, I had to go back to 2021. I didn't realize it was that long ago. When Bryson Armstrong played. And Cole Kozlowski just kind of has a name like a football name, right? Like
he has a NASCAR name. What are you talking about? He should be driving NASCAR.
Excuse me. It always seemed like that. I know Jason Johnson is more of a kind of run of the mill name, but it like Bryson Armstrong. I remember when he came in just like that. He seemed like a small school guy just coming in here trying to bring that leadership and bring that, kind of a tackling machine that he was. And maybe Kozlowski kind of has the same deal there. So he's one of those guys that, when you're a 4-year starter, you just kind of, you have the type of traits, obviously the intangibles that, coaches love to see, but I imagine as somebody who, a lot of coaches talk about it, but somebody who just holds it seems to be, so dearly, as far as trying to create a culture that Scottfrost does. There's a potential there where somebody like him could get a lot of playing time just because he brings a certain energy to the team. And they're probably seeing the same thing out of Kelly Lawson with probably an upgraded talent level to go along with it. So if he's being talked about a lot along with Lewis Carter, then, there seems to be some locks there. It is interesting to see, to talk about TJ Bullard, because I feel like the last 3 off seasons we have said, is he going to get into rotation or not?
Well,
it just feels like he's been here forever, I guess.
Yeah, he has. But here's the thing about TJ Bullard, right? He's never put on he doesn't really have the frame for a Power 5 linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And he's only listed at 200 pounds. You're not going to get very far in the Power 4 with that size. And that's another point I kind of wanted to bring up. Outside of Picciotti and Jaden McDonald, all these guys are 6'1", 6'2", 223, 230 pounds, 205. Cam Moore, which surprised me, 6'1", 205.
I don't believe that.
You don't believe that he's that big, or he's that small?
He's bigger than that. Sure.
Well, that's what they have him listed at. Yeah. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, under the Gus era, we've kind of moved up the scale, and that typical Power 4 linebacker, which is 6'3", 6'4", 230 to 240 pounds, right? And if you look at the roster up and down, we don't have a lot of size. Now, I don't know if that's by design, right? But outside of Phil Picciotti, which you're right, Alan, he blew both his ACLs out. So I don't know how good he's going to be. However, he was a 5-star linebacker and played really, really well for Oklahoma. I think we just lost Ben. Played really, really well for Oklahoma. So, I'm hoping he finds some of that magic, but it's really hard to do when you've got both ACLs that are torn. So, Trey, from a player's perspective, how hard is that to come back to? And can you get back to, oh, there he is. Hi, Ben. Can you get back to that normal place when it comes to, an injury when you have blow out both ACLs?
Yeah, I mean, one ACL is tough. It's a lot more manageable than it was 10, 20 years ago for sure, but two is extremely tough. Mostly just because I don't know when he tore them. I don't know if they were back-to-back years. I don't know if it were, same year. They were back-to-back years?
Back-to-back years.
Back-to-back.
Yeah,
One was his freshman year. And
then the next was sophomore?
I think so, yeah. It's either high school and freshman or freshman and sophomore.
Yeah. So what's tough is just you miss so much live action time, and all you're doing is rehabbing, really. You tear your ACL, you rehab just to get your strength back, just to get to where you feel comfortable to go out there, and then you tear the other one, and you're doing the whole cycle all over. I mean, physically and mentally. You haven't physically hit somebody besides, little dummy pads, whatever you do on the sidelines, in almost 2 years. That's really the hardest part, I think. I was blessed where I never really got a significant injury like that. But just talking to all the guys that I've seen go through it, most of it's mental. It's just trying to feel like, especially like the ACLs, Achilles, those tendon injuries, just not being afraid to make those explosive movements. Because as violent as football is, the only way you can be violent is being explosive. That's those movements, it put a lot of stress on those
through the tackle, right?
Yeah,
and you do that with your legs
drive
first
on your blocks, when you're going up to jump to make a play, running backs trying to, when they get contact, keeping their feet moving, like a lot of that explosiveness, you have to get back comfortable and not just hesitant. I mean, this will go all the way back to being, hesitating when you're playing football. You can't do it. And for like some people do it because they're scared. Some people do it just from injury history. Some people do it because they're overthinking. All those situations are bad. But for two ACLs, that's tough. I can't really speak to where he's at. I haven't physically seen him play. I know, like we said, a 5-star linebacker, he was a beast.
Expected to be an All-American too, right? So
so I mean, the talent's there. Is just is this pre 2 ACL talent, or is this a new version of him? So I think kind of what Alan hit it on the head. The last 4 or 5 years, that room is just going to be a big, I wouldn't call it a question mark, but just we'll see it on Saturday, and not even against some of these lower level teams. We'll see it when it's real football time to be played. I think the first few weeks, Ethan Barr and I forget his name. He was a beast. I thought he played well, but
Deshaun Pace.
Yeah, they look like, All-American level kind of guys the first few weeks, and then we start playing stiffer competition.
Ethan Barr was before he transferred. He was, I think, second or third team. So,
so I think once it gets to we start playing those tougher competitions, conference for sure, we'll see where they kind of where they fall, and hopefully, Coach Frost might have some gems and some guys that can make some plays. I mean, who's the other kid? Lewis Carter. He's an explosive kid. I don't know why he wasn't playing at Oklahoma, but he was
playing, just not a starter.
Yeah. But he's an explosive guy. So
him and Kelly Lawson. There's been a lot of off-season buzz about that.
Yeah.
Pittsfield 29 says, with the switch to 3-4, smaller linebackers can be a benefit since they are normally quicker. Yes, especially when you're talking about sideline to sideline and how they're moved within different positions, right? Are they dropped back? Are they coming forward? Are they speed brushing? What are they doing? So yeah, absolutely it can. However, at the Power 4 level, you
gotta have some weight too.
Yeah, you got to have 6'3", 6'4", 230.
I was playing safety at 215, 220.
Yeah, and that was in the AAC at the time, right?
And that's just because, again, and it's not even just like to play, it's just to make it through a season. I mean, that's why they want you to gain weight. I mean, perfect. A lot of guys like Kyle Gibson, he's an anomaly. Like, he was a smaller safety that could sustain over the season. But most guys, they wear down. Physically, you can't play 70 to 100 snaps of hitting somebody, not just in the game, but practice, off season, running. Like, it takes a toll. So,
all right, Ben, running it back to you before you dropped off. Sorry, I was just about to swing it back, and then you dropped off. So
no, it's StreamYard kicked me off there. I was actually just gonna maybe ask you guys since you and particularly Alan, since he follows it so closely. I mean, do we think Malachi Boone is going to get any run this year? He's going to get any playing time? He's going to be able to earn any playing time? Because I mean, he was somebody as a freshman coming in that we are excited about. I'm also excited about that he batted .441 in high school too. I don't know if he's going to get any run over with Rich Wallace, but
he should. He's a sport athlete, 100%. I mean, didn't he make like he made like All-American or something, right, in high school?
I think he was quite the two-sport. Well, he was a three-sport athlete. He played basketball too, but he's more of a highly touted baseball player and, of course, football player.
And he played two positions in football. He was running back.
Yeah, running back as well, right?
Yeah, had 11 touchdowns on the ground, and then also had 85 tackles as last year as well. So he did it all.
Well, I mean, at 6'2", 235 as a running back in high school, you know, you're going to run a few people over. I can tell you when I played, that wasn't the case. I mean, for me, do I think he's going to get some run? If we're running the 3-4, depending on what he's got, speed and athleticism, so he has a better chance than what most do as freshmen, especially at his size, to be able to do that. The other thing that is advantageous for him is that we're running a new system, or we're modifying the system that we were running this year, right? So he has the same amount of chances and snaps to catch up as far as being able to read the plays and do all those other fun things. That being said, there is something to be said for experience when it comes to tendencies, when it comes to the speed of the game, et cetera. So if you are going to see him play, I wouldn't expect him. Maybe you probably will see him play early on against North Carolina A&T or whoever, you know, those kind of people. But then he'll be pulled back and then filtered into the rotation against the bigger teams, depending on how he performs in practice. But as freshmen, there is a difference between high school and college football. How you both, not just in the speed of the game and being able to adjust to that, but the reads. You're not reading when you're playing high school football. Yes, you are reading some things. You are nowhere near ready for college football level of being able to read an offense or tendencies or understand where they're going or what fits look like. You know, you may, even if you're the most talented, and most of these kids, honestly, if they're playing at high school, and they're coming to the Power 4 level, they're coming to the Power 4 level because they could out-athlete everybody else that was on the field. So it's very rare that you get a combination of someone that has those physical attributes and has done the work on the mental reps to be able to compete, especially early on in that level.
I remember when I first got to college, Coach Callahan, he was my DB coach. He was like, every single one of y'all are all-state players. You know, all of y'all were all-state players. Some of y'all were All-Americans. You know, all of you guys are the best in your state, or at least the top notch of your state, you know, so that's the gap. And then, like you said, Roger, I played, and I'm sure even Ben, your nephew, he IMG and where I played, we had advanced stuff, and it's still nothing compared to the college playbook. I mean, sure. even the reads, like you're talking about, I mean, most kids nowadays, it's like, okay, you have this man, or, you know, go get the quarterback. You know, it's simple. When you get to college, you go from the guard to your receiver to, if he does this, you go to another guy. If he does it, it's so many things you have to be disciplined with your eyes, your hands, your technique. You know, it can be a lot for a freshman, especially if you don't enroll early. That's really the benefit of enrolling early, is that freshman bump you hit in March, April, May, rather than September and October. You know, that's why you enroll early. So yeah, it's gonna be hard. I think, like you said, Roger, A&T, a couple of these teams early, he's gonna be able to play because it's gonna be simple. And
because his athleticism too, right?
Yeah, he's probably gonna be the best athlete on the field in those instances. But once you get to the UNC and you know, just generically those Power 4 schools, the conference games, all like I said, all those guys are all state players. All those guys were preseason All-Americans, all conference level guys, you know, so where's the advantage? If everybody's out there that are the same type of athlete, the advantage is the discipline. It's the technique. It's
the mental game. It's the leverage. It's angles. It's being able to understand pre-snap tendencies.
Yeah.
You
the
know,
tape you watch, how you watch tape in Monday through Friday. You know, as a freshman, I can tell you, I sucked at watching tape as a freshman. You know, I was horrible at it. Because I wouldn't say it bored me, but it just, I couldn't.
And you were one of the most cerebral guys on the field, too, right?
I couldn't grasp what to look for. That was like the hardest thing for me. Like, all right, I'm watching tape. I see what play they're running, but like, what am I looking for tendency wise? And then again, once, you know, Coach Fish became the DB coach permanently, he taught me, this is what you look for when you're going against this guy and then this guy, and this is what you see. So yeah, and it takes time, you know, it takes a lot of time that's why college is hard, man. Like that's another reason I don't see how kids transfer every season. Like it blows my mind because you
Especially
can never,
sport like football, like learning a new plays, like scheme and playbook.
It's
like
hard. It's hard.
Like a sport like basketball, I mean, you can go out in any court in America and just ball. Like football just feels like, to me, it just feels like so advanced as far as just how you have to learn the, you know, different plays and the different schemes and tendencies. Like it is wild to me how you, I mean, there is still a difference. There's, you know, in basketball, you have players on their 4th, 5th school, you know, that's become more commonplace now. And in football, you still have transfers, just not as many schools, like not every single year, but still it is interesting.
Well, basketball, you have systems, right? And you have offensively, you have systems, right? And your head coach is out there telling you, okay, you're going to switch to this defense if they start doing this, or to slow them down, or, you know, let's go to a zone or whatever, press. But it's nowhere near, having played both, it's not anywhere near as complicated as football. And part of that is because you've just got a lot more guys on the field, so you can do more. There's a lot more intricacy to it, right?
And I feel like even like basketball now, like it's turned so much into, well, I don't know about college, but like mismatch hunting, to where it's just, you know, at least for me how I see it. Yeah, but like football, it's a, whereas basketball, you're like, all right, this guy's 5'4", not literally, but he's 5'4". Let's put our 6'4" point guard. We're gonna put him in an ISO or pick and roll.
He's the shortest player in America.
Yeah, literally.
Like so Muggsy Bogues is now playing.
Bogues is on every college basketball.
And I think it's easier in basketball to exploit those matchups. So like they'll just get straight to it. Like set a whole bunch of picks, get the switch. You know, or you can't really hide them. Whereas football, I mean, shoot, I was a physically limited kind of guy. Relative to, you know, the Mike Hugheses of the world, those guys, like those were freaks. So like you could kind of hide me and my deficiencies, and I could play to my strengths. Whereas if I were that kind of deficient in basketball, if I get switched on the taco fall, like I'm getting killed. You know,
what I would say to that though is offensively, for example, if you're playing RPO or whatever you're playing, right? No matter what you're doing, you're still setting that play up, whether it's with motion, whether it's the read, whether it's whatever. You're trying to build a mismatch, right? Same way with even if you're running, if you're going inside zone or whatever your running scheme is, you're trying to create a mismatch in a hole or a gap so that your running back can get through there and either get to the next level or do whatever that play is designed to do. And then hopefully your receivers are blocking down field to help spring them loose. That's what we did so well the first time with Frost offensively. Yeah. And same way with that 2013 team. People forget about that, right? That team, those got no block, no rock, right? Yep. That was the theme. So again, you're still building mismatch. I get what you're saying, like it's more apparent and clear, right? On the mismatches in basketball. However, the same way in football these days, you're getting your playmakers. You may have 3 or 4 playmakers you're trying to get the ball versus, and so, you know, the defense, it's harder to find that mismatch. But at the same time, both games or even soccer, if you're playing soccer, what are you doing? You're trying to create mismatches, right? So every single sport, that's what you're doing. Yeah, Alan, I'm sorry. We kind of took away the Malachi Boone conversation. I don't think you got to answer that one.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, I don't think he's going to play this year. I do know we kind of, like Ben said, we're excited about him, but for some of the reasons, like you said, Roger, it's a different game, obviously, in college. And I just think with the projected starters are all upperclassmen, and even probably the main rotation guys, when you talk about Lawson, Carter, Jaden McDonald, and Kozlowski, like those are all seniors or juniors right there. And it's just tough for me to imagine him coming in as a freshman and playing over those guys. So, maybe again, some special teams, kind of how like Ford and Cam Moore have played the last couple of years, but I don't think he's going to get real playing time this year.
It's crazy, right? Because I look at the roster and I look, okay, of all of them, 5 of them are transfers of our linebackers. 4 of them are not, right? And so when I look at the teams that they transferred from, you've got Virginia Tech, Oklahoma, Colgate, and Virginia Tech. Now, back not too long ago, if we got 2 transfers from Oklahoma, and we got 2 transfers from Virginia Tech, we thought we were going to be world beaters, right? And now we're saying
Right.
these guys aren't that great. So, and I'm not saying they aren't that great, but we're basically less excited about it than we would have been just a few years ago. So that's the difference in the level of play, relative to the athletes that we have. And Ben, I'm sorry, I think you were about to say something.
No, I agree, Roger. It's all relative, right? Like, I mean, it's just and I also think some of the things that the Gus era kind of we got used to, some high, what perceived high level schools transferring, transfers coming in, on both sides of the ball. And so I think that starts to become a little bit of the norm. And so we're seeing a continuation of that with this offseason, which is obviously so volatile with Frost and the entire staff coming in and having to rely on grabbing a lot of guys from the portal, mainly as a result of, Gus and the staff leaving and a lot of players leaving along with that. And then having to go shopping in the portal to try to see what we can do in year one of this Frost era 2.0. So I think it's a combination of us getting a little bit more used to the new era of college athletics and being in the Big 12, but also I think the Gus era of recruiting kind of got us a little bit used to those types of transfers as well, at least the names.
Well, yeah, I think it was names, but what could you do with them, right? And
yeah.
so,
well, that was his biggest downfall, that's for sure. Is it just seemed like when you get more excited in the months of February and March and April, as opposed to September, October, November, etc.
Then you have Miami football.
Then you're Miami, yeah, basically.
Well, I think too, like the novelty of transfers is also worn off because, like, in that first year or first 2 years of the transfer portal opened, everything was new. So when you're getting guys from Alabama, Oklahoma, and all that, it was amazing. Now, yes, we're probably a little bit skewed because of the Malzahn era, and he got all these big quote unquote booms, and not a lot of nothing happened with a good portion of them. But I think now when you see the staggering numbers of transfers every year, there's going to be transfers from every single program, whether it's Alabama or it's Colgate. And, it's hard to get as excited, especially when these guys are transferring every single year. I think there's only so many. It's kind of like, in a sense, becoming like high school recruiting. Like, there's only a small crop of guys that are like the 5 stars and the 4 stars. So, when you get a transfer, if they're from Oklahoma or wherever they're from, like most of the time, it's probably because they're not playing as much as they want to. And if it's a true top-notch guy, like when Jalen Hurts transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma, you know who they are. Like, it's not like the whole nation's talking about Kelly Lawson or someone like that, or Lewis Carter. Like, it's great. They're probably good, and it's good that they have Power 4 experience, but I don't think they're the cream of the crop, top-tier transfers that are basically getting re-recruited by the top schools because they actually are a top player that's produced at an extremely high level already.
I'm just going to quickly say, which is kind of like I like the kind of storyline or drama of and both sides of it, but mainly the Cole Kozlowskis of the world. Like they established themselves. They kind of became a he's probably a big name at Colgate, right? Like, I mean, everybody on the campus probably knew he was. Like you said, a 4-year captain. I mean, a big deal, and he graduates, from a great university, and he, decides to say, what can I do at a quote unquote next level, right? Like, what can I do at the next level? And he's coming in here with something to prove. That's a really cool story. And then the Kelly Lawsons, Lewis Carters of the world that maybe have felt like they didn't quite reach what they anticipated reaching when they were a freshman, coming out of high school at a larger university or a bigger name university, and then coming to UCF with something to prove there. So both sides of that coin is pretty interesting to me, especially the Cole Kozlowskis of the world, those guys that are stepping up at UCF with a huge, kind of something to prove that they can do it at this level.
So, Alan, this question was from you, so I'm going to ask you this question. What's your overall grade of the linebackers and DB room as it stands right now?
Yeah, I'd give the DB room like a B right now. I think it probably has the best mix of returning guys that we've actually see produce. I mean, I know the Henderson twins have been injured. I know Marshall maybe hasn't quite lived up to the 4-star hype, but we know what they can do. They've all played at least a handful of games. We're like, okay, that's why we recruited them.
Yep.
None of them are like complete busts or anything like that. Like, we're all confident in their abilities if they could stay on the field and have the right coaching staff. Between that and I think some of the transfers that have, again, I sometimes it feels like lately, and maybe I'm skewed, I kind of prefer the FAU and the Colgate type of transfers. Like, those have actually worked out better. I mean, you think about the guy that was just drafted, Mac McWilliams. I mean, he played at, what was it, Marshall or UAB the year prior. And, I know we have examples of big guys like out from Alabama going pro and stuff like that too. But I look at some of the more recent guys, they've been from smaller Group of 5 or even FCS schools that have really produced for us. So I think the DB room has a really nice mix of returning guys and then transfers that are both from the quote unquote smaller school and some ones that are a little bit more exciting, that are coming from the Power 4, at least name wise, are a little bit more exciting. So I'd give them a B. Linebacker, it's again, I feel like I'm a little bit skewed, but I feel like that's more in like the C+ range. I mean, I think the depth I still don't see being there when you talk about maybe 3 guys that have on the whole in the whole depth chart that have played serious minutes. Then you have a couple guys coming off serious injury, and then you have 3 guys that are either a freshman or have not played at all or played only on special teams. So don't love the depth there. But we could be surprised. I mean, maybe it's that year when we're not really expecting it, and all of a sudden the linebackers are the best group on defense. But I would go DB.
Going to happen with our defensive line the way it is. I mean, we'll talk about
that. Happens, we'll be a fringe conference.
We'll be a good defense. Yeah.
So we really will earn that 15 out of 16 teams if our defensive line performs that poorly, because we got some, to borrow a phrase, some dogs on the defensive line. So I can't wait to talk about that.
No, you're right. I mean, I just think, that's why I'm giving the linebackers like a C+ in my opinion. I don't think it's too much to be excited about, but I think the precedent that's been set over the last few years, it can't be too much worse. So we've had some really poor years at linebackers. So I think even if it's status quo, probably looking at like a C+, and I think there's a chance that could surprise when, there's not really too much expectation there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the defensive line should be dominant, right? And both at the end spot and the interior defensive line, right? So expecting that to happen, that means we're going to be putting a lot of pressure. If we're putting a lot of pressure, that means we're disrupting timing. If we're disrupting timing and taking away the run game, that means those defensive backs should have plenty of opportunity to disrupt plays, picks, turnovers, that sort of thing, right? So that's what I'm expecting out of those defensive backs. And actually, if you look back at the history of some of those transfers you talked about, that's kind of what they specialized in, was getting going and getting turnovers, right? Linebackers, we talked about this ad nauseum every year. I don't know what we're going to get. I do believe that Lawson and the folks we mentioned, they are good linebackers. Kozlowski, he had a lot of buzz coming in too. So I do think we have some guys that can make a difference. The question is, will they step up and do it? And they're going to get help from the defensive back. They're going to get help from the D line. But the question is are they going to be able to follow through? And as usual, the question mark of the defense is the linebacking core, although I do think we have some good players in the linebacking core this year. Okay, you mentioned Gus Malzahn, so let's go ahead and switch it to some other UCF news and talk a little bit about Alan. You mentioned that Gus Malzahn, like 3 weeks ago, he had an interview that he talked about UCF, but it seems like he came out swinging a little bit more in this last interview. What did he mention?
It was relatively tame. I mean, I don't think Gus is ever a guy that comes out, swinging from the hip. I mean, he's not gonna really go over the top, but it was definitely his most vocal that I've seen him be about UCF since he's departed. He basically said, and the quote wasn't directly from him, but the interview that War Chant had with him, which then Mike Bianchi had the editor of War Chant, which is an FSU blog, I think for Fansite or maybe 247, I forgot which one, but had him on the show and basically said, Malzahn said that he was miserable towards his time at the end of UCF. The exact We were too. And I'll get into, he mentions a little bit into that, but his exact quote, it just wasn't working there, and it was pretty obvious. So he did admit that it wasn't working there, but in terms of taking accountability, he seemed to blame it a lot on the financial resources that UCF has or lack thereof. He kind of cited that UCF obviously didn't have the full share of the Big 12 money yet, and that they were working from behind, in terms of being whatever it was, last or second to last in the conference in terms of total NIL spend and all that stuff, but didn't really take accountability when, okay, you're getting all these booms and these 4-stars. The budget didn't seem to hurt you that much in recruiting. Not saying that an additional 30-40 million wouldn't help, but he kind of blamed it on the money as opposed to development and all these other things.
I will say this too. I mean, you have to give it to him. Gus Malzahn also took some of his money.
Correct.
And he invested that back into the team, right? From a recruiting perspective, he absolutely did that. He was a good recruiter. He did put his own money towards that, but a lot more coaches are doing that now. We're talking about these huge coaches' salaries, but a lot of them are coming with clauses in there that they have to reinvest some of that coaching salary as a donation back to the school. And that includes power schools, right? But at the end of the day, you can have all this talent, you can bring all these people in, you can spend the money, but it didn't come through on the field in culture, play calling. I mean, he was, all right, I'm the play caller. I wanted to come back to college and be a head coach because I wanted to be the play caller. And then next year he's like, I'm not the play caller. I'm not going to be the one who's calling plays. And then, oh my gosh, our season went sideways. So now I'm going to be the play caller again. And guess what? We went 4-8. So that was college culture. That was culture personified. That was the type of player that he was bringing in personified, right? Just because you have a payday doesn't mean that you're buying in to the program. KJ was the perfect example of that. And he really hamstrung himself when it came to that. So I don't buy it. Gus, yes, I agree. Nobody was happy. You did the right thing, saved UCF some money, saved yourself some face, because a big part of that was him not wanting to get fired yet again.
He's better than me. I would have kept the money.
Yeah, he's a good person. Don't get me wrong. I've met them. I've met him and Christy both. They're good people. It just didn't work out here. And he knew he was going to get fired. The buzz, I remember before the Utah game was, even at the game, that's what we were talking about in the stands, especially when we started going down and getting behind, was Terry has to pull the trigger. there was a lot of pressure on Terry Mohajir. They were neighbors. I mean, can you imagine how awkward that would be? Literal neighbors, right? He did himself a favor. He did the rest of us a favor because to Trey's point, he wouldn't have had to do that. So Trey, you had your hand raised. What else did you want to say to that?
Well, I mean, I was talking to some guys, just what do we consider good recruiters? Like, is it just what we sign at like the 247 rating? Like,
no, I don't think so.
Well, what would make Gus a good recruiter then? To you,
I think there's
high caliber players. High caliber
Yeah,
players, because it's not just the 247 rating. It's also about what their potential is. Because a lot of these guys that he was bringing in, they had potential. They were 4-star, 5-star guys, right? They had potential coming in. They had the athletic tools. So they had the potential to be really, really good. I just don't think he created a culture of accountability. He was allowing guys to basically be treated like NFL players as part of that, to bring them in. Like, hey, you're not going to have to push as hard or go as hard as do many reps, all that other stuff. The coach from Kansas State, who we brought in as the strength and conditioning coach, who was one of the highest regarded strength and conditioning coaches in the country. We were all celebrating him coming in. Basically Gus told him that he had told the players that they weren't going to push them as hard. So he had to go less hard in the offseason. What ended up happening, we had a ton of injuries, right? You have to go hard in the offseason in the workout program to build up the strength and the durability to be able to survive a season. And we weren't doing that. So do I think he was bringing in talented players? Yes. Do I think he created a culture of success? No. Do I think that there was way too much turmoil going on in the QB room, in the coaching staff, etc.? Yeah, there's a reason our linebacker coach that was our up-and-comer that he hired on, that was a rising star, went to Arkansas, right? And
the reason I ask is because, like, do you think Coach O'Leary is a better recruiter than Gus Malzahn?
No, I think Coach O'Leary was better at finding diamonds in the rough and way better at development. But I don't think
I agree with development for sure.
He was a better. What I was going to say, I think first of all, I think it's all relative. Like if Alabama was getting the recruits we got under Gus Malzahn, they jump off a cliff and slit their wrists on the way down. So it's just like it's all relative. But in terms of UCF and in general, yeah, I do think Gus is a great recruiter. One, I think, first of all, he resonates with kids and their parents and does a great job. And I also think he had an air to about him, just being that he coached in a national championship game. He was at Auburn. So when he's walking to this kid's house, I think he automatically has a reputation that, at this time, despite even being fired by Auburn, it was still a good reputation around college football. He had a lot of things he could talk to. He wrote the book on offense. He's been to a national championship. He coached Cam Newton. Those are things that not many UCF coaches have been able to say. So I think he did a really good job with just resonating. And he brought a certain gravitas, if you will, to it. So I do think
systematizing it. He systematized recruiting, right? He made it into a P4 recruiting program when it came to bringing the cars on the field, when it came to having the camps and the I forget what they were calling it, where they were bringing him in on summers and doing this big thing. He systematized, he brought that recruiting program with him. He did a great job with that. Unfortunately, and to answer your question directly, Trey, when it came to Coach O'Leary versus Coach Malzahn, as far as who was the better recruiter, Coach O'Leary was also coaching right at the tail end when his style of coaching and recruiting still worked. I mean, he was literally right there.
Which that's what gets my third point. I don't mean to drag us on. Like, where would you rank Frost in that?
As far as what, recruiting?
Like a recruiter.
He's a good recruiter. I don't think he's as good as Gus Malzahn, though.
I agree. I think he is. I think Gus is easily the best one as far as just what it means to recruit players. I think he's the best one. I think, like you guys said, he relates. And
just look at the schools of the recruits that Scottfrost is getting now versus the schools that are recruiting the guys that I know that I think that's more important to me than the 247 ranking is.
Who else is offering these?
They're getting offers from all the top programs, and clearly they're all seeing something, and he's winning those battles. It's more about the winning the battles against a school compared to like 247 ranked them a high 3-star, 4-star.
Yeah.
Well, let's be real. I mean, when you got Texas Tech dropping 45 million, 50 million, first of all, Scottfrost had to learn how to recruit in this era because it was completely different than when he left. And secondarily, he's recruiting against a bag, and it's no longer the McDonald's bag that's being handed out on the drive-thru or $500 handshakes on a boat trip on a river for if you're playing for Alabama or Mississippi State, which, by the way, those are real. That's not a fake story. It's no longer that. It's, hey, I've got 45 million. Hey, Lee Hunter, I can offer you $1.5 million to come here and play football, at this university. And Lee Hunter's got a kid, and that's generational money for him, right? Especially when he came back from. It's hard to recruit against that, right? Gus Malzahn had the ability to do that because of his name brand, and he was kicking in a few extra dollars there too. So I think from a recruiting perspective, I think it was good. The only hole that I'll put in Gus Malzahn's recruiting is the fact that he made promises not to hold kids accountable. And so by doing that, you created a culture that was not conducive to winning. And that's the biggest hole. Pittsfield 29. I don't know where I'm getting the 6 from. Maybe Gus's biggest fault in recruiting is he just went after high school rated players, maybe not the best needs that UCF needed. Gus put too much effort in winning the offseason versus the season. I think that he did. I do think he recruited to his system. So I'm not sure about that as far as the needs are concerned. I think he tried to recruit to the needs. I think he just, from a character perspective and expectation perspective and what he allowed to have happen in the program, I think that's where he failed. But he definitely did put a lot of effort in winning the offseason. And, look at it from the Cam Newton time frame, right? He got Cam Newton, and he was the reason that Auburn was so successful.
You mentioned earlier, Roger, that Scottfrost had to learn how to recruit in this era of college football, and that's absolutely true. And I agree with you. And I think he'll get better and better as his renewed tenure as head coach at UCF continues to grow. But I think as much as we talk about Gus as being a good recruiter overall, and I agree with everything that you guys are saying, the one thing that I don't think he adjusted very well to when it comes to the new era of college football is to being able to recruit your own players. I don't think he was used to that. He didn't want to be used to that. It's a part of the college football landscape that is in this new era that a coach like Gus, but it's not just Gus, but certainly he's made it known recently. He made it known in that interview that we're discussing right now that he just wanted to be a play caller. He wanted to develop what he had, but he didn't want to beg kids to stay every single week. And I don't blame him one bit. I don't blame him. I think that became too difficult for Gus in general, but I think it became extremely difficult for Gus at UCF. And I think that's actually what he's referencing when he's talking about the uneven financial playing field, is that he felt like he had enough cachet, he had enough history, he had enough legendary status, like Alan was talking about, coaching in a national championship game. He felt like he had enough juice to get the players on campus. It was once they were on campus that I think he was having difficulty not only developing them, but like keeping them in the right mindset to be a champion, not just for themselves, but for UCF as a university. I feel like that's where he fell flat, is that it's one thing to convince them in a short period of time to commit to a school. It's a whole other ball game to get them to completely commit to a cause that is all about that school. It's not about them individually. It is about playing for this university as opposed to playing for just something that only benefits you. I'm sure that's a challenge that every single college sports coach right now faces, but absolutely at the highest level it is what every college football coach faces. And I think it's something that Gus never could quite adjust to, and I can't say I blame him. And it's something that he embraces now in his new role, I believe, at FSU, because it's a little bit less than that. It's a lot more game planning and installing his scheme on offense as opposed to all that other stuff I just talked about.
So Pittsfield 29 chimes in, says, great point, Ben. The off the field GM role that head coaches have to play has just flipped the ratio from practice to being an account with payroll. That's why a lot of folks are hiring GMs at Power 4 programs, right? Especially when you're talking about having to manage a salary cap of $40 or of $22 million plus whatever the NIL is out there, right? So, yeah, Pittsfield, I agree. Ben, I agree. I also think that if you create accountability and a winning culture on the field, that becomes a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where he failed. I think he failed to understood that he couldn't be the players' coach that way because the players are not committed to the program. They may have been that way at Auburn, and not that way at UCF. The way that you get there is they have confidence that what you tell them is going to get them to win games. And it just kind of turned into a death spiral, I think. And it doesn't help when you bring someone like KJ Jefferson, to the program to win. He's the leader of your football team, right? And then he doesn't take it seriously, doesn't participate in the off-season workouts, doesn't put the mental reps in, and shows up at Waffle House every night, right? So, and overweight. So
it might have been the biggest death knell of his career at UCF was
KJ Jefferson.
Is KJ Jefferson.
100%. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, who knows who we'd be talking about right now? What type of UCF football team we'd be talking about right now if we never signed KJ Jefferson? Who knows? Would
we be talking about Tommy Castellanos here as opposed to Tommy Castellanos at FSU making some pretty I don't know if you've seen his social media
I've seen the comments
lately, but some questionable decisions when it comes to how he represents Florida State University.
Yeah, I don't mind it as much as some other people, but I see it. I know.
I mean,
it's interesting. That's for sure.
All right. I think we've beaten that horse to death. One quick thing before, actually two quick things. Transfer running back Jaden Nixon named to the Maxwell Award watch list. So Jaden Nixon actually has a lot of accolades out there. We talk a lot about Miles Montgomery for a good reason. I expect him to be the number one back in the stable, but Jaden Nixon also has been making a lot of noise. Tavion Swint has been making a lot of noise as well. So it's always good when you hear your running back room has guys with those kinds of accolades. And, don't forget that he was very, 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 Jaden Nixon was very, very good last year. We've kind of been talking about. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think he was actually one of the better running backs in the country. I mean, he didn't get a lot of media hype because he was at Western Michigan, but he's a guy who ran for 6.4 yards a carry, had 12 touchdowns, nearly 1,000 yards. I mean, he was all MAC first team, had a couple of games that he rushed for nearly 200 yards, overall had like 1,500 all-purpose yards. So, I mean, he was extremely good. I mean, we're blessed to say that we can, Miles Montgomery is about to be the top guy, but we have a guy that may be better than Miles Montgomery. We'll see. I mean, at the very least, we have two very, very good options at running back. A thing, regardless if we've been under Frost, O'Leary, or Malzahn, the running back room has probably been the most consistent position on the field for about 10 years now.
And when we go through the offense, right, and we start looking through the offense, we just named three names: Tavion Swint, Jaden Nixon, and Miles Montgomery. But there's a lot of guys in that running back room behind them that were 4-star recruits that we brought in that are now sophomores that were very, very talented Florida running backs with size, with speed, that could start at many other programs. So to your point, the depth when we get to that conversation, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people because that running back room is stacked. Okay, one more quick thing before we swivet to Ben's basketball bonanza, I guess is what we'll call it. We've got I kind of wanted to talk about what's happened with this NIL stuff. So we started teasing it before, right? Congress has started some activity in the congressional side of things. And then President Trump came out and signed this executive order, putting some limitations on college football and, NIL specifically. So a couple things to kind of talk about. First of all, the program is in place. Last week, the new governing body that was just put in place by this agreement after the lawsuit, which has finalized, basically they are no longer going to have control of the NIL programs outside of the 22 million that folks are allowed to have, up to 22 million, right? And that's that number is going to increase, and as a percentage of their media rights deal, right? You have a certain percentage cap on that too. However, they are still going to review the NIL deals and have already started declining some of these. So one of these things we were worried about was enforcement. Is this really an enforcement arm? The NCAA wasn't. It looks like it is. The sum of the teeth has been pulled back, or control has been pulled back less than a week once it was put in place. And now you've got the congressional authority coming in and trying to put some limitations on that. Who knows if that's actually going to go through? I think that there's going to be enough Power 4 program senators and senators and Congress folks that will slow that down or not get it to fruition. I think it's largely symbolic. President Trump's executive order really doesn't have any teeth when it comes to the college program, especially since it was decided in a lawsuit. So to me, it's more politics than anything else. Unless Congress gets its act together and starts doing, which I don't see, because it's going to hurt a program or multiple programs from states that have big programs. And unfortunately for us, we're not, our state government hasn't really stuck up for us throughout the years. But some of these other programs, when you look at Baylor, when they were getting ready to be left out of the Big 12, when you look at some of the other situations around the country, they will stick up for their Power 5 programs or Power 4 programs. I got to get out of saying Power 5. I used to say Autonomy 5, and now I said Power 5, and now it's Power 4. But anyway, the point is I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but there is already movement at like 2 weeks post this lawsuit going through, where they're already making adjustments internally within that system. And remember, we told you this here as well. The power structure or Power 4 programs or the autonomy conferences are pushing and have pushed for the percentage needed to pass something to change. No longer do all the Power 4 conferences need to agree to a change for the autonomy conferences to make a change. So now they only need 3 out of 4. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how this moves forward. There are some additional rules and restrictions, but I just don't see Congress or President Trump's executive order having any material impact on college football as we know it. Anything that you guys wanted to add to that now that this is kind of finalized or in place?
No. I think you wrapped it up pretty well.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I was going to talk about it more the week before last, but now it's kind of been out in the news a little bit. So I'm keeping it a little bit shorter than what I promised. So without further ado, and since Trey's not yelling at a cloud because he's ramping up his throat for football season, right?
Pause.
Pause? All right. Well, let's go ahead and swivet and get to something that Swivet, that's right, to something that Ben has been promising us for at least 8 weeks. So Ben Stout, it's your time to shine. The roster has been finalized. Give us a preview of the Hoops roster for this coming season.
I guess the roster has been finalized. Is it ever really finalized nowadays in this era of college athletics? But yes,
it absolutely is.
You're right. So it was April 15th when I last talked about college basketball transfers, and at that time we didn't even know, it wasn't even official yet that Mustafa Chiam was transferring. So we knew him when. So yes, so currently UCF has the number 46 ranked transfer class in the country, and I guess that's going to move forward. I don't see how that changes. As you said, the roster is pretty much finalized at this point. They've been enrolled and in the school for a while. So, and you see, videos released on UCF basketball social media of them working out and doing different things together. So we're hopefully excited about this new team. We are number 9 in the Big 12 as far as the transfer portal rankings go. That's according to 247. Both of those, number 46 in the country and number 9 in the Big 12 is according to 247. Even number 9 is not terrible. I mean, we got a lot of teams in this conference. So the only players that are staying from last year's squad, and I hope we don't have to get terribly used to this every single season. We might have to endure a few more seasons of this. But we'll see. I really don't want to ever get used to having a completely new team every single year. It has been that way over the last 3 seasons, and we talked about ad nauseum on this show as to why. But we're going to have to get used to an entire new crop of players this year. The only players that are staying are Pooh. Is our man Pooh, who's a redshirt.
Pooh, or are you saying is Pooh?
Yeah, well, no, he's our guy. He's a redshirt senior this year. It definitely seems like he's been here a very long time. So he's a redshirt senior this year. And then Elijah Holsway is also a carryover. He was a 7-foot center from Bethune-Cookman that transferred in last year. He's an Orlando kid. He went to Windermere Prep. I mean, neither of those 2 players played unless it was complete garbage time last year, and I don't anticipate that changing this year unless there's a rash of injuries. So the guys that I did talk about on April 15th, which we can either publish these notes or we can talk about them again leading up to the season in more detail as kind of the starting lineups or at least the rotation players seem to kind of reveal themselves leading up to the season. But Riley Kugel was a guy that I talked about. It's a transfer from UF originally and then Mississippi State as well. Themis, I think it's pronounced Themis Folks. Point guard. He's a grad transfer out of most recently Milwaukee, and he was at a few other schools before that. John Bull, 7'2", 210-pound center, is a sophomore. He played at Ole Miss last year. His one season in college basketball, played in 17 games there, but it was very sparingly. He's a guy that has, obviously big time length on the floor. We talked about him. He was a top 100 prospect coming out of high school. He is the 3 that I've mentioned so far are all 4-star transfers. Jordan Burks out of Georgetown in Kentucky prior to that. He is also a 4-star transfer, a 6'9" small forward. And then lastly, one of the guy that I talked about on April 15th, the last guy was George Beal Jr., 6'4", 200-pound combo guard. He's a senior. He came out of smaller schools such as Norfolk State for two years and most recently Hampton. He's a guy that played a lot of minutes. But he is, and he's a good shooter. But
he's a DMV guy that was brought in for the three ball, right?
Yes, he is a knockdown shooter. Yeah, he's a very good shooter. We'll have to see now that we've completed our roster for the most part. It'll be interesting to see if he earns any type of playing time. I don't really anticipate that with some of the guys that I've already talked about, and the guys that I'm going to begin to talk about now. This is on April 15th with the signing of Themis Folks, who is from Milwaukee and a guy that we played against this year. Another teammate of his that we mentioned his name, but I didn't go in depth about him because it was only rumored at that time that he was going to sign with UCF, is JaMychal Stillwell. And luckily we did land JaMychal Stillwell. I honestly, and maybe it's just because I'm biased because
You're biased.
Maybe I'm biased because he's a big man, and I totally get that. But I think JaMychal Stillwell is probably the most impact player of this class, and mainly because I look at him as Chad Brown 2.0. I mean, I think he's an absolute beast. He's somebody who I'll just kind of go over the different points that I talked about. So he's a 4-star recruit. He's 125th ranked transfer in the country, 21st ranked power forward. So not bad stats there. He's a junior college guy. So he spent his first 2 years in junior college and then last season at Milwaukee. And his one season at Milwaukee, played in all 31 games, started in 29. Not sure what happened with those other 2, but I'm sure they were early in the season, or maybe it was a ticky-tack injury here or there. He averaged 28 minutes per game, 13 points per game, and a Horizon League leading 10.7 rebounds per game. So that's a Division I basketball player averaging almost 11 rebounds per game. I don't care what league you're in, that's going after the basketball with the type of relentless energy that I'm sure Johnny Dawkins was really lighting up when he had a chance to get this guy. So yeah, averaged a little over.
What'll be interesting with him though is like his size versus the players that play in
Sure.
those leagues, right? And seeing, can he be dominant? And one thing that's underrated as far as the Big 12 is concerned, because it is such a great conference, is the fact that we all were yelling and screaming about calls in certain games versus certain teams. Can he be physical or as physical, not just when it comes to his ability, but also his ability to use that ability against these other teams without getting fouls called on him all the time?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, he definitely thrives off energy, and how is that reflected when we get into the grind of the Big 12 schedule and late January? How are the Big 12 refs, who I know, as we've mentioned plenty of times before, are not necessarily kind to UCF in certain situations? How does that play out? I mean, I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, and I was listening to you. I gave me a chance to pull it up when he played against us. I mean, he had 14 points against us, but he had 12 rebounds, against us back when we played them in early on in the season last year. So definitely had a good performance that night. Actually, I think Josh gave me his seats for that night. So myself and my son were in the building to watch him in person. But I'm definitely excited about JaMychal.
Did he give you his seats plus the seats in front of him? Because I don't know how you got your knees into that space if that was the case.
Funny enough, my aunt has like the seats right in front of him, so I got to see her that night as well. Yeah, as I've said, he's relentless after the basketball, and that goes on both ends of the floor. He doesn't just limit his activity and going after rebounds on the defensive end. He averaged 4 offensive rebounds per game. I mean, I think that's a great stat. That shows that he goes after the boards on both ends of the floor. He's a good positional rebounder, as you mentioned. Roger, he's not the tallest guy. So, I mean, he's good at using his body, getting in the right position on the floor, and then going after, the ball hard after it bounces off the rim. So it's something that I think certain players just kind of have a knack for being in the right position on the floor in order to get the rebound. And he's definitely one of those guys. He's also got, when he does receive the entry pass into the post, he is, he can play face up game near the basket. He's got some good post moves, but his back to the basket, moves, I think, are his strong suit. And he scored a lot of points. And again, you're right. We're going to have to see, how this translates to the Big 12, but he scored a lot of points off of offensive rebounds and putbacks at Milwaukee. That was one of his biggest.
Which we've been missing, right? So the last couple seasons, we've really been missing that rebounding ability and specifically the offensive rebounding. Like when the guys got mad, you'd see them do it, right? But outside of that, we got better, I think, throughout the season where it evened out a little bit more. But from an offensive rebounding perspective, there were stretches where we were going into possessions and it wasn't there, right?
And one of the things that you've heard me complain about over the last 3 or 4 seasons, actually going back to even when we had Taco Fall, but we never seemed to be like a good boxing out team in general, and never had like a player that was like that focused on that part of their game. And he certainly seems to be the type that values that type of move. So I think he's just a Dawkins guy. I think he's a day one starter. I mean, he's the one that's probably I'm most confident in. Maybe him and Riley Kugel are probably the ones that I'm most confident in are going to be like starters from like the beginning of the season. But, time will tell. We'll see how they rotate in and everything. But I'm excited about Jermichael Stillwell. I think he's a big time add.
So, as you kind of look at this roster and the makeup of the roster, right, we obviously went out to go get some 3-point shooting because we needed some consistency on that. Mm-hmm. We had a 40+% shooter on the court, right, in our point guard position, but we didn't really have anybody to back him up. So if we needed the 3 ball, there wasn't anybody that could consistently hit a 3 behind the arc to help, take the pressure off of it. So a lot of that was, and I'm talking about Darius, if anybody's, anybody's asking, right? So he finally got that rainbow shot dialed in. But when it comes to Darius, he either hit a step back. He was always hitting step backs, or occasionally he'd get an extra pass. But 9 times out of 10, people would play up on him to try to take that part of our game away, and then we just didn't do well enough passing to make up for it, right? Or the defense had an off night. So when we look at the makeup of this team, one, what strengths do you see on this team offensively, and what strengths do you see defensively for this team, and what kind of scheme should we expect? Are we going to be kind of like what we've been lately, or are we going to try to make the extra pass? We tried that at times, it seemed, during games, and then we just got away from it, and then it became ISO ball again. Defensively, are we going to be a press team again this year? At times, what do you expect out of this team, and then do you expect them to compete?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's glaring to me in the construction of the roster as I'm looking at it is we have lack of size, in particularly like the post position. We don't have necessarily. I mean, we got John Bowl, who's an unproven. Obviously extreme length and is 7'2" frame, long arms, and somebody who is rangy, but he's 210 pounds. He's not 250, 260. Not that too many players are 7'2", 250. I get that, but by the same token, there's really not much on the center position to necessarily back him up. So that kind of stands out to me. Famina is another guy that's he's out of Mississippi State most recently. Jeremy Famina, he He's played in 37 college games, so he's got a little bit of experience, but really not a significant amount of playing time. So he's a complete unknown. I think that being said, I do think we have some good positional size. Like, I think we have some good positional length
specifically.
Right. I do think we have some good size at the guard position and even the swingman position. You know, when you're looking at guys like Jordan Burks, 6'9", long, rangy guy, super athletic. I've talked about him. He's just a really athletic guy, and he's going to play in that small forward position. Chris Parker is somebody that I haven't talked about yet, but transfer out of Villanova, 6'9", kind of combo guard or small forward. He can play on the wing, or he can play, in that shooting guard position. He's capable of bringing the ball up the court. So we do have some good positional size. And then when you got a guy like Fulks, who's 6'2", and Riley Kugel, 6'5". You got both of those. Both of those players can play both guard positions. Fulks is definitely a point guard. More of the point guard type. George Beal, I've talked about. I'm not quite sure where he fits yet, unless he's just a lights out shooter. So I think there's good positional size there, and I think that's going to help us out tremendously on the defensive end. I would be surprised if Dawkins isn't talking about in the preseason that we're going to play fast. We're going to get up and down the floor. We're going to make sure that we're outpacing the opponent. He's going to talk about a lot about the full court press, as you mentioned, Roger. I think that this is a team that is going to be set up and built like that to provide pressure defense and do that in the full court. I think where it's going to be a little bit of a question mark for me is something we ran into last year. And I hope he surprises me. I hope he proves me wrong, but I haven't seen enough out of John Bull to know that he is anywhere close to the player that Mustafa Chiam is. And
he's not. I mean, let's be real. Like, Mustafa Chiam was not only as a freshman coming in, but also the way that he grew as a player throughout the season.
Oh, he didn't hit a wall. He excelled.
He burst right through it. I mean, he jumped right through it, over it, right? I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. The only thing he had to learn, I think, in my opinion, that I wish he would have done a little bit, because he was amazing at everything else, is people started figuring out how to get him to foul. That was the only thing that was, that was even a slight notch on him. But being a freshman, he did
better at as he got into like February and you got into those later games he figured that out too. I mean, man, he was a good player and both not nearly
offensively as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I don't see Bull as being close to that. And so that brings me pause as somebody who's obviously I understand what goes down in the post a lot better. So I kind of noticed some things on this roster makeup, and what's provided me with a little bit of pause is that last season, one of our biggest downfalls, especially when we got into Big 12 play, is that we just didn't have anybody to bring in the game when Chiam got into foul trouble or he needed a blow or whatever it may be. And now I'm like, well, John Bull isn't Chiam, but who's going to back him up, right?
I mean, it would be Elijah Holsway, wouldn't it?
It could be, in the sense that he is the other, one of two other centers on the roster. And then Jeremy Femina, who's a transfer out of Mississippi State, 6'11", 250, is another guy that could potentially fill that spot. So it's going to be between those two to see if either of them get many minutes. I don't anticipate either of them, really, Holsway or Femina, to really get significant minutes, more than 5 to 8 a game at the most, if one of them emerges.
It's about giving them breathing minutes, right? And the one thing I like about Holsway is that he's 7 foot, and 270 pounds. So
He's a
got
big
a little,
boy.
he's got a little bit of weight. So, and he's 7 foot tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ben, you were 7 foot tall. And when you played, what was your playing weight?
Oh, I was 7'1". I am 7'1", and when I came in as a freshman at UCF, I was 180. I probably got up to 200 maybe in the sophomore year, but I couldn't put on weight to save my life. I struggled with my weight at UCF the way that other normal people struggle with their weight, just the opposite. I struggled to put on weight. And
so
it
you
was
took off your freshman 15 was taking off 15 pounds.
I didn't lose any weight, but thank God I didn't go below 180. My God. But I was definitely never, I luckily still am never sniffing, the 270 mark at 7'1". But yeah, I mean, we've got some big bodies to go in there. It's just a matter of
Mike says 7'1", 180 pounds. Poopa could have pushed you over.
I don't know. I was pretty wiry strong, but who knows? But we do have some. I mean, our strength is going to be kind of our guard position, and I really believe in Stillwell. I think he's going to provide a lot. Some other names that if we want to just go down the line and just talk about them real quick, we've got Chris Parker. I mentioned him briefly. He is a transfer out of Villanova. He was actually he was a pretty highly recruited player out of high school. He actually wound up signing with Alabama out of high school. He's a 6'9", 201 guard, small forward. He's a redshirt sophomore. He redshirted at Alabama. He played last year at Villanova. He played in 27 games for Villanova. He didn't start any of them, about 10 minutes per game. So he played kind of limited minutes as a freshman, but he was really highly touted out of high school. He was a top 100 player out of high school.
10 minutes per game is not bad for a freshman, and especially at a school like Villanova. It's not like Villanova has bad teams or it's a bad school. Villanova has a school that competes in the tournament pretty much year in and year out.
And he was the number 10 ranked player in the state of Florida. He played in Belglades. He was South Florida. I mean, he was a highly recruited player. He averaged 25 points per game, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists his senior year of high school at Crossroad Academy in Belglade, Florida. So he had over 20 offers from big-time schools: UF, FSU, Alabama, Illinois, K-State, Georgia, Mizzou, Villanova, St. John's DePaul. Like, he had a lot of big-time offers coming out of high school. So he's somebody who just watching his film, scores in transition, gets out ahead of the break. He runs really well up the court. And when he's not a good shooter, so he's not going to provide buckets on that front, but he is savvy without the basketball in the half court, where he makes good timely cuts towards the basket. If our guards can find him, he's going to dunk on somebody this year, often. And so he's got a lot of athleticism. He's somebody who's going to rely on those points in the paint, just by, cutting or driving to the basket. That's somebody that Chris Parker, I think that's going to be able to provide some rotational minutes. I think he's somebody who's has a potential of making some noise here at UCF.
I really think Folks is as well. But it's funny, I was looking at the transfers because obviously most of our team was a transfer roster, right? So just going through it: Rhode Island / Mississippi State, South Carolina State, Louisiana Lafayette, Milwaukee, Florida, Mississippi State, Norfolk State, Hampton, Butler's Community College, Milwaukee. So that's 2 Milwaukee guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alabama, Villanova, Ole Miss, Bethune-Cookman, UVA Wise. I don't know what that means. Mount St. Mary.
No. Wise is literally a UVA campus. Like, I discovered that as I was doing research on Carmelo Pacheco, I discovered that is apparently a school. I think the city is named
So
Wise.
is it separate from UVA main
Yeah,
campus then?
it is. It's a city called Wise. So it's a separate campus. I believe they're a Division II school. And he played 1 year to start out his college career there before he transferred to Mount St. Mary's. That's Carmelo Pacheco, 6'5", shooting guard, who is just like, if he plays this year, Pacheco, if he plays this year, it's because he is the best shooter on the floor from both teams. It's the reason why he plays this year is because he has continued his good shooting from his previous stops, and he is able to shoot that well in the Big 12. Like that, it's his only. That's like I watched 10 minutes of a highlight reel for Carmelo Pacheco. 9 minutes and 50 seconds of that were him catching the ball and shooting it from three. That's literally what he does. He catches and shoots. He can dribble a little bit, and like he can shoot off the dribble, but is he
if he's a catch and release guy, what does his release look like? Is it a fast release, or is he a guy that's
he can get the shot off, and he's got a big body for his, like, it says 190 there, but like 6'5", 190, but he's a big body guard. He's somebody who kind of uses that size well to get to his spot on the floor. But he's capable. I did see a little bit of him kind of scoring down low, but it was all about the 3-point shot for him. He averaged 46% last season at Mount St. Mary's. That led the MAAC conference, but that was fourth in the nation, actually. That was for 3-point percentage, obviously at a much lower level.
Mike says he shot 166 threes last year compared to 22 twos.
Yeah. So there you go. Thanks for the backup on the stats there, Mike, because that's the way it goes. I mean, he's a guy that is going to shoot the three. He's on the floor for that reason. And so, hey, I hope he gets playing time at UCF, because that means that we've seen that effort and continuation on in practice that has earned the playing time, and I hope he stays that well, because that means that he's knocking him down in the game. But he is an assassin from the 3-point line.
To put that in perspective, right? 76.36 threes, right? 76 threes is what he made. That's 229 points that he scored last year just on threes. So if you divide that by, let's say 20 games, that's 11 threes or 11 points per game off of threes. So averaging around 4 made threes per game.
Yeah. And he played in 30 games last year. He started all 30, 28 minutes per game, 9.5 points per game. So you're pretty close to your number there that you said, just a little bit under that, just because of the amount of games. But 1.7 rebounds, 1.3 assists per game. He's there to shoot the basketball. And hey, I'll give him credit. He did that so well that he is now on a Big 12 roster at UCF, and I hope he does some big things. I think I have to look it up. Maybe it was Andrew Fagley being such a Chiefs fan. I don't know if he's related to Pacheco in the NFL, but maybe he is. But anyways, yes, he obviously has that unique last name, like the running back in the NFL. But yeah, he's a shooter, and I hope he's a good shooter for us, because we've had some great shooters come to our program who were just excellent, at their previous stops, and it wasn't quite the case here at UCF, and I hope he can kind of buck that trend.
All right, Ben. I hate to cut it short because we want to talk more hoops, but we're coming up.
And we've got plenty of time to do that, so I think maybe I got a way to kind of wrap this up a little bit, but I don't know if you've got a further question there, Roger, or anything like that.
No, I was just going to say we've got about 13 minutes left before the end of the show. So I just wanted to make sure we were bringing it in because we had a few things to still talk about.
Yeah, and I think as we approach the season, we can talk about these guys individually a little bit more. But I just, kind of some of the notes that I put in here, just my doing analysis on each of these guys on our roster, including the 2 incoming freshmen, which are Tanner Jones and Zach Johnson. I think I've got kind of the way too early starters and rotational players, my predictions here. So the highest potential starters, I got JaMychal Stillwell, Riley Kugel, Themis Folks, Jordan Burks, and John Bowl. I think that's the potential starting lineup at this point in late July. And likely high minutes guys, I think Chris Johnson, Pacheco, Chris Parker, and then some sort of spelling for Fomina or Holsway, kind of trying to spell some of the big guys for just a few minutes. And then I don't think either of the 2 freshmen, Tanner Jones or who comes out of IMG, obviously a highly high rated academy there and played a national schedule, but and Zach Johnson is a complete unknown. I don't see either of them really getting much playing time. I'd be surprised there. And Devin Cambridge and George Beal Jr., I don't see either of them being a huge impact either, but we'll see. And that's kind of that's a little bit of a recap, and we can continue to go in depth as we approach basketball season and go into the heart of football season.
All right, let's go ahead and swiv it real quickly again. And we'll try to do this quickly. First of all, it's come to that time in the show where we want to give a quick shout out to our listeners and give a little bit of listener love. So obviously, this week we've had Mike has been out here participating in the show. So thank you, Mike, for that as always. And Pittsfield 29. Thank you as well. We did have some comments. One was from a Hawkeye fan for Iowa State. So as you remember, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the possibility of a highly rated women's basketball recruit coming here. And J Hawkeye 1954 says, if you want to compete at that level and talk about bringing in a girl that's rated in the top nationally, plus get excited about it, then you say you might not have enough money, ... Be prepared to be a cellar dweller until you can compete. All right. So Hawkeye, I agree per se, like on the reality of things, but at the same time, our ace in the hole, like we mentioned in the short that you were responding to, is her godfather, who is here. And as we saw with what Johnny Dawkins said, first of all, thank you for viewing and thank you for commenting. We know who we are. We're just now getting the money. I explained that to you in those comments. And we're going to be excited about that no matter what. Well, once we're in the conversation, when we close them, we'll be even more excited. But Satia Messer, we have to be excited for something, even at a chance, because the last couple seasons just haven't gone our way. A lot of injuries the last few seasons. And so we're hoping that something swings our way. And as Mike points out, we already brought in 2 top 50 women's recruits. One of them did leave the program already, but we did recently, right? So Satia Messer is kind of known from her recruiting perspective, but that's why we're talking about. So Jay Hawkeye, I'm not going to take offense. We know who we are. You don't need to point it out, but thank you for participating in the show. We'll get excited where we can. All right. Next we have Cooper Teague, who responded to RIP Isaiah Arrington, and that was in response to one of our shorts highlighting one of his teammates. So shout out if you did not watch or did not know about Isaiah's story. Really good kid. Unfortunately, very great, a great athlete, died in a house fire, believe it or not. Really, really sad story. So At the end of the day, those were the two comments from the threads. Make sure you're commenting on there. Make sure you're sharing. Make sure you're liking. Make fun of us, as you can see. Even if Jay Hawkeye 1954 is trying to pass a little judgment, we know who we are, and we appreciate you listening in and commenting and being part of the show. For those of you that have been watching, I see you in the background. You may not be commenting. Thank you. For those of you that are going to watch this back, and those that are following, please make sure that you like, subscribe, share. We do it for you. And if there's anything you want for us to talk about on the show or have any feedback, please make sure you're commenting there as well. So thank you very much. All right. Last but not least this week, since we don't have Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week because Josh is not here, and we won't have the quick update on UCF sports that Alan does not watch because Alan does not watch them. Let's go ahead and swiv it one more time to Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week. Alan, take it away. And you've got
all right. So
actually 5 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be less than that. It's actually pretty quick. So I know we talked about defense today, but just the offensive side was just a lot more interesting when you start talking about previews of the team and who's returning and transfers and all that. So we know the transfer portal has obviously been very prevalent, especially at UCF over the past couple of years. But this to me was kind of a very jarring stat that I don't think I've ever seen UCF offense this kind of depleted in terms of guys that left through the portal and graduation. So on offense, UCF only actually has 16 players returning from last year's team, and only 6 of them have actually played in any sort of game action that's real. They've played on either a backup role or a starter role. And of those 6, only 3 players on the entire offensive side of the ball had at least one start last year. So that was Paul Rubelt, who was the only starter back that actually started all 12 games. Quarterback Ja'Curry Brown, who started in 2 games. And then you had Cameron Kinney, who started 1 game at offensive line. So just 3 players with a combined 15 starts is all that is returning from last year's squad.
12 of those
another
Rubelt.
3 players. Well, pretty much all of it's Rubelt, correct. And the only other 3 players that played, significant or fairly significant time are obviously Miles Montgomery, who played in 10 games last year. 2 of them he was injured. Kylan Fox, who did appear in 11 games, but was mostly obviously on special teams, but played a fairly big role there and still had a few catches. And then Keegan Smith
a role this year.
Absolutely. He'll be playing a much bigger role this year. And then you have Keegan Smith, who was the only other one that played in all 12 games. So you literally have 2 players that played in all 12 games. There's Keegan Smith and Paul Rubelt, but Keegan was in all of a backup role. So I don't think I've ever seen, that type of, I think it was just like a rare combination of UCF being very senior last year, and then obviously having a huge amount of transfers with a coaching change. But we've had other coaching changes before, and it hasn't been that bad. But I did find that really interesting. On defense, it's nowhere near that. There's a lot more players returning and a lot more guys that have started. But on offense, it was just such a eye-opening number to see just 3 guys with really 1 guy that's actually was a true starter, because Ja'Curry was came in after the KJ disaster, and then Kinney only had 1 start.
Yeah, it will be interesting once we get into the offense. I mean, I'm honestly a little worried we don't have a QB1 called out just yet, right? I mean, granted, it's beginning of camp, and I expect in the next week or so we'll hear something, because you just have to have enough snaps, from a continuity perspective, et cetera, to make it make sense with the wide receivers and DJ Black and guys like that I expect to have big years this year. Mike says it's going to be Ja'Curry. I really hope it's not, unless he's made a huge step forward. I really hope it's not, because I don't think that bodes well for the season. That being said, thank you for that. We're going to do defensive line next week. Ben will pick up basketball at some point as we get closer to the season. We're also going to have some baseball. We're hoping to have Brandon Helwig on to help us celebrate the run up to the season. And, again, just appreciate all of you guys participating in the show. We apologize for missing last week. Thank you for all of you that have been with us since the beginning, as we approach 100 episodes. We're excited. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share, tell your friends because we want them to be part of the show. So that's it for this week. Go Knights and
charge on.
Charge on. Okay, I guess I'm going to do the random babble since Josh isn't here this week. Enjoy your time, Josh. We really